got a stomach bug from someone.
Ready? Okay. Hey, good morning, everybody.
morning.
Good to be with you. It's a Thursday morning, so we're a little bit off schedule. It's January 2nd, but we're here in Longs. They were kind enough to accommodate us this morning, and so we're here to share with you. So Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you. Want to just talk to you a little bit about understanding people. It'd be amazing how further down the road our relationships could take us if we really took time to understand people. Stephen Covey has a chapter in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of the chapters is understand before being understood. So we want to talk a little bit about that today. In banking, it happens a lot if we're not careful. I had a customer one time when I was lending, and he came in every 60 days or so, kept renewing the note, and it kind of became a little short-term evergreen note. And I just kept renewing it and not really asking why I kept needing to renew it. And the amount kept climbing a little bit, and y'all have all been there. You've seen that. The amount keeps climbing. So finally, one day, he comes in, he lays his hands in his face in his hands, and he says, man, I can't pay the note back. And I said, why not? And so we started talking about it, and what had happened was he was trying to pay off equipment and pay it off as soon as he got a contract in, and it was eating all of his cash up. And so the problem was he didn't have any cash. It wasn't that he didn't have business. So once I finally understood what he was trying to do, I said, listen, keep your cash. Let's finance the equipment and pay it back through cash flow. Point being is he's extremely prosperous today, got a huge business, and was almost at the point of closing his business simply because his loan officer, me, didn't take time to try to understand what he was actually trying to accomplish. I just wanted to make him happy. Any of y'all ever guilty of that as bankers? Yeah, we all are if we're not careful. Another example, I had a lender who had a partnership, and the company wasn't doing really well, and one of the partners finally bailed and said, you know, it didn't work and I'm going to leave. And so the other partner our bank decided that we would help. So we jumped in and took the risk. And as we took the risk, we priced him accordingly. It was a kind of a mediocre, maybe even a poor loan. We priced it at prime plus 2. And so as we priced it at prime plus 2, a year later he leaves the bank. And we're like, what in the world happened? So in talking with him, what happened was he found out his other partner was the problem in the business, and the business took off and soared. And so he got his tax return. His tax return was great. Now all of a sudden he was in A credit, and another bank just swept him away. And it's simply because we didn't understand exactly what was happening and where he was. And so our pricing was just too high, even though he technically didn't give us a chance, but that's okay. But the point was we missed that opportunity because we weren't following up. We were just waiting to hear back from him. I'm going to give you one more. It just happens all the time, but this one's very personal to me. When my daughter, youngest daughter, was born, she was sick all the time. First 5-6 months of her life, she's just sick. We're taking her back and forth to the doctor constantly. They can't, it's viral. Sick all the time. So we got sick of her being sick, right? And took her to another pediatrician. Well, he said, you know what? We need to dig a little deeper. Let's do an x-ray. Well, it wasn't viral. Guess what it was? Pneumonia. So we spent the next 5 days in the cage in the hospital with her, hooked up to IVs, trying to get her well. And guess what? She got well. But here's what happened with the doctor. He gave us the prescription without really looking at the diagnosis, right? And so if we're not careful as bankers, that's what we do as well. We'll offer the prescription without actually doing a really good diagnosis. Same thing in our marriages. I know a lot of folks that'll get married. Well, they get married and don't really understand the other person. They think they do, but they really don't. So it's always a challenge. So it's important to understand people. Understanding people pays great dividends. Here's a quote here at the top of the page. Few things will pay you bigger dividends than the time and trouble you take to understand people. Understand people. Here's another one. If you can't understand people and work with them, you can't accomplish anything. Or you won't accomplish much anyway. I'll change that quote a little bit, but you can't accomplish much. The ability to understand people is one of the greatest assets you can have. If you can ever get that piece figured out where you can understand people, and some of you might be thinking, I never have understood people, right? Who can explain people and what they do? Well, the point is, if we can make an effort to understand, it'll take us a lot further down the road. Here's what Harry Truman said. When we understand the other fellow's viewpoint, understand what he's trying to do, 9 times out of 10, he's trying to do the right thing. They're just going about it in a different way. Think about that. They're trying to get to the same place we are. They're just going about it in a little different way. So a lot of times it helps us to understand that. Here's a John Maxwell quote that's not on your page that I kind of added in pencil here. You have to see what others see. That's the relationship part. Before they see what you see. That's the leadership part. Does that make sense? I'm going to say that again. If you're taking notes, this is a good one. You have to see what others see. That's the relationship piece. Before they see what you see. That's the leadership piece, right? Gave you my 2 banking examples earlier with customers. What would have happened with those relationships had I seen what they saw first?
You would have
You were nailed
Yeah,
it.
before me trying to get them to see what I saw, right? So if I'd have just flipped it around, it would have been a different outcome. All right, so how can you improve your basic understanding of people? There's 2 issues that a lot of times that are the failure in relationships and the development of relationships. And I can't do a 360-degree view with you, but I'm going to hit a couple of them. One is fear, and the second one is self-centeredness. So let's talk about fear just from the business standpoint. So let's talk about that. Why we fail to understand others. Usually it's a lack of understanding, and it's this fear, and here's the thinking. Their idea will be rejected, right? Their idea will be rejected. I don't offer anything because I have a fear of rejection. I'll take that on the personal side. Even in marriages, if I offer something new and there's a fear that it's going to be rejected in my marriage. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, here's another one. They feel coworkers won't like their idea. Maybe even personally, I don't offer the idea to my spouse because I'm afraid she's not going to like it. So I keep it to myself. But then on the business side, I don't offer ideas because what if it's turned down? What if my idea is rejected and coworkers don't like it? So then here's another one. They feel they won't get credit if the ideas work. I've got some great ideas, but if you're going to take credit for it, I'm not going to give it to you. Right? How about this one? They're afraid the boss will be threatened by their ideas. Sometimes I've been in some organizations where I've offered some really good advice and got this done to me. You ever had that done? Yeah, hope not at Anderson Brothers, but I've been in organizations where they've done that, squashed the idea. They were threatened by the idea. How about another one? This one, they're concerned that they'll be labeled a troublemaker. If you keep coming up with all these new ideas, wanting to change things all the time, you might be a troublemaker, right? So that's another one. Here's the last one we'll share with this. They're afraid of losing their jobs if the suggestions don't work. So in other words, if you take my suggestion and my suggestion doesn't work, then I may lose my job. I've caused us problems. I've caused us to lose money. So the point being is fear keeps us from understanding people, and a lot of times it keeps us from fully expressing ourselves too. So here, let's talk about self-centeredness just a little bit. This is not something we do typically intentionally. A lot of us are just naturally self-centered. We were supposed to get an amen about that time, right? Okay, yeah, we're self-centered a little bit. So here, let's talk about our priorities when we're dealing with people. I'm just going to share some interesting words. The least important word is I, right? When you're dealing with people. People are interested in themselves. They're not interested in you, right? So if it's all I, are you connecting and communicating, understanding? No, probably not. Here's the most important word, 2-letter word is we, right? Most important word is we. The 2 most important words is thank you. Boy, use that one. That goes a long way, doesn't it? Are you ever amazed that you go and you buy a product from somebody and you don't even get a thank you? We were at a retail store the other day and I didn't get a word. I just walked out and I thought, wow, boy, thank you would have went a long way. Just, how about just common courtesy? But didn't get one, so it was kind of interesting. Okay, the 3 most important words to get away from this self-centeredness idea is all is forgiven. That should be 24/7. You know what? You shouldn't wait on somebody to ask for forgiveness before you give forgiveness. What do you want to do? Immediately forgive. Okay? Immediately forgive. Because if unforgiveness is in your heart, what happens? Who does it hurt?
Yourself.
Yeah, it hurts yourself. So all is forgiven. It needs to be a 24/7 habit. Here's the four most important words. What is your opinion? How novel is that? What do you think? What do you think? All right, here's another one. The five most important words. You did a good job. You did a good job. Won't that take you a long ways? A lot of people have trouble saying that, right? Because it's not the pat on the back going to them. But you did a good job is important. Here's the six most important words. I want to understand you better. How about that? Boy, if I'd figured that out saying that to my teenagers, I'd have probably saved myself some heartache, right? But I want to understand you better. So change your attitude from self-centeredness to understanding, which is other-centeredness. But to do it, it requires a desire to do it and a commitment to do it. It doesn't just happen, all right? It's hard work. It doesn't just happen. Here's another one in the self-centeredness realm. Failure to appreciate differences. This is about respecting everybody's unique qualities. Everybody has unique qualities. We've got to respect those. And here's another one here. Failure to acknowledge similarities. We got a lot more in common than we think sometimes. If you'll just try to understand where people are at, you'll figure out you probably do have a lot more in common with them than you think you do. Okay. All right. Share something good with you here. Things everybody need to understand about people. Look, this is a short list. 5 little things here. Did you realize that everybody wants to be somebody? Right? Everybody wants to be somebody. Think about this. Number 2, nobody cares how much you know until he knows how much you care. You hear me say that all the time, right? We've got to, if you really want to develop a relationship, you got to touch people's heart. And when they know you care, it's going to make a big difference. Okay. Number 3, everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs somebody. Nobody is alone. If you are, it's a sad place to be. Okay, sad place. Number 4, everybody can be somebody when somebody understands and believes in them. Okay, everybody can. Listen, you can take people who are going down the wrong path, whose self-esteem and self-value are down here, and you start telling them they can. It's like the little engine that could, right? You keep telling them they can, and so what happens? Yeah, eventually, if they start believing in themselves, then some amazing things start happening. Amazing stuff. All right, here's number 5. Anybody who helps somebody influences a lot of people. Guess what? If you help somebody, what are they going to do?
Help someone else.
Yeah, they're going to tell somebody, right? And then they're going to pass it on. So the idea is, where does word of mouth advertising, you hear us talk about that a lot in banking, word of mouth advertising. Why does that happen? Well, it happens because of this. You've helped somebody, and so they're going to also help people, but they're also going to tell people, right? And that's just the way it works. So that's what we need to understand about people. Here's a choice that we make. We choose to understand other people. Every person can develop the ability to understand, motivate, and ultimately influence others. If you want to make a difference in their lives, you've got to make your mind up to do it. Make your mind up. And here's the 3 things I want to share with you. See the other person's perspective. All right, I told you my 3 stories at the beginning, right? You got to see the other perspective. If you don't, you got a good chance of missing them as a banker. All right, here's another one. Demonstrate empathy. You got to, and the only way you do that is what? Put yourself in their shoes and understand from their perspective. So you've got to do that. And here's the 3rd one. Maintain a positive attitude about people. Is that challenging sometimes as bankers? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've heard me say it before, but bankers are very, generally, if you've been in banking very long, you become very cynical and very skeptical. I always say the only group of people lied to more than bankers are policemen, right? Mm-hmm. And so the issue is that we, if we're not careful, that attitude kind of develops in us. And then we kind of start thinking negatively of people until proven otherwise. And it's hard to develop relationships when that happens. All right, listen to this. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for. So think about that. If our attitude is more skeptical and cynical, what do we hear and see? It's negative. Yeah, we see the negatives. But if we're more positive, what do we typically see? If we want to see positives, then we'll look at the positives, right? So it makes a big difference. Treat each person you meet as if they're the most important person in the world, and then you'll communicate that to them. All right, that's what they'll think they're somebody if you treat them like they're somebody. It makes a big difference. Okay, let's do a little application here. And this is a challenge that is always fun, but I want you to be honest with yourself about it. Because what you may find is you don't make as much effort to understand people as you think you might. All right, so here we go. This is a superior rating. There's 4 ratings here: superior, good, fair, and poor. Superior says this: I can nearly always anticipate how people will feel and react in any given situation. Understanding is one of my strongest abilities. Anybody want to jump on that one and say that's me? Okay, all right. Here's the next one. Good. The next rating is good. Most of the time, what people do and what they want makes good sense to me. I consider my ability to understand people as an asset. Anybody jump on that one? All right, got a couple? All right, good for y'all. Good for y'all. All right, here's fair. I'm surprised by people just as often as I'm able to anticipate their thinking. I consider my ability to understand others to be average. Anybody average? All right, we're dropping. Well, we got one more category, so I guess that's where the rest of us are at, all right? So poor. Most of the time, people's feelings and motivations are mysteries to me. I definitely need to do better in this area. Anybody? My hand's up. Y'all gonna leave me hanging? I'm by myself here? Okay. Huh? Yeah, absolutely. Listen, the bottom line is we all need to work on it. All right, we all can get better.
We're in different categories depending what we have going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Everybody we meet, depending on where we are, everybody we meet gets who we are, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're not in the right place, they get the wrong thing. So we've got to make the right impression and do the right things. All right, here we go. Action plan. You can improve yourself immediately by asking yourself these 4 questions when it comes to meeting new people or even keeping existing relationships going. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? What's their story? I'll give you a good example. I got a lady that we've done some coaching with, and she's got 35 people in her department. Fairly big department, a very diverse, culturally diverse department. And this guy is from Turkey in her department, and she didn't really know much about him. He worked hard, he showed up, and that's about all she really knew about him. Nice guy. She thought he was married, didn't really know a whole lot about him. We went through some training, and as we came out of the training, she decided, you know what, I need to connect with my employees a little better. So she called him in her office, and of course he thought he was getting fired. He comes in and he's a little nervous, and she said, listen, I just want to just get to know you better. Can you give me 5 minutes or 10 minutes and just tell me a little bit about your story? Well, here's the deal. He was from Turkey. He worked for the government, and the government office that he worked for asked him to do something that was unethical. And actually, it was illegal. The government asking him to do something illegal. He refused to do it. So they took his health insurance away. His little girl was 12 years old and had cancer. And they took his health insurance away because he wouldn't do something illegal. So he's on the bus and he's on the way home, and on the way home he looks up and there's the U.S. flag flying at the embassy. He tells the bus driver, stop. He goes to the embassy, knocks on the door and said, I want asylum in America. Just like that. Guess what? He's here. He's working. Little girl's doing good. Life's good. Now, let me just ask you this. Do you think this lady's perspective of him, her opinion of him, her idea of him is different now than it was before she asked the question, tell me your story?
Yeah, sure. Because now she knows what he's about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just understanding a little bit makes a big difference. Okay? Makes a big difference. All right, here we go. Where do they want to go? Where do they want to go? Does that matter? Yeah, I'll give you an example. I was coaching a business owner the other day, and as I'm speaking with him, he said that he had somebody who worked in his organization that he just bypassed them for a promotion. Didn't really think that they were interested, so he hires a new person in. Well, this lady that he had bypassed comes up to him and said, hey, what about me? And he said, I just didn't think you were interested. And she said, what do you mean? And he said, well, you never mentioned anything. You never said anything. I just never saw any interest from you in it. And she said, well, this was my job. I wanted this job. And he said, I missed it. I missed it. But she also missed it in some ways. But he said, I missed it. I should have asked her. I should have picked up on the idea that she wanted this job, because it probably could have made her into a much better employee if she'd had something to shoot for. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah. All right, so here we go. What is their need now? What do they need now? In other words, how can I help you right now? What is that? What does that look like? And here's the last one. Just the simple, how can I help you? That sounds kind of mundane because we say it every day, right? In the banking world, it's how can I help you? How can I help you, right? Every day. But in reality, when it comes to relationships and you're saying, how can I help you? Then you've got to be willing to go that extra mile when they say, this is what I need, right? It doesn't matter if they spell it out like this. Sometimes it's very subtle. And again, we're talking relationships, not necessarily the banking product side. But in the relationship, what can I help you with now? Think about this. How many times should I ask my spouse or my wife, how many times a day should I say, how can I help you?
At least once or twice a day.
Yeah. Well, for instance, yesterday, I probably said it 20 times yesterday. Just, she kept saying no, no, no. So I just kept asking until she finally said, here, do something. Right? Yeah. So the point is that even in that, does that move my relationship down the road because I'm constantly saying, how can I help you? Yeah, absolutely. It helps, doesn't it? So any relationship you've got, find a way to help. Find a way to help. And I'm out of time. Appreciate it, guys. Happy New Year. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Great job.
As always, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, ladies. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for having me today, too.